A sentient digital entity? With issues about his station in life? Who takes his buddies along on a journey to the internet? That sounds... Wait a minute. That's the Emoji Movie. I see you, Disney. I see you. Ralph Breaks the Internet kicks off 6 years on from the events of Wreck-It Ralph, with Ralph and race car driving princess Vanellope, no relation, enjoying a pretty routine life of work and play. They do their video game things all day long, and at night they can go to tappers and enjoy root beers and hang out in the various arcades. Ralph loves it, Vanellope a little bit less so. In fact, she's aching for some bona fide excitement in her life. Excitement that Ralph tries to provide for her, only to wind up breaking the Sugar Rush arcade cabinet that she lives in, and as a result, the game world she and her friends inhabit. So there's a week to go before the arcade owner ships off the broken machine, and so Ralph and Vanellope set off to a newly discovered realm called the Internet in search of the replacement parts needed to save her home. It's basically a steering wheel for the arcade machine. But to get there, they're going to have to brave the wild world of the World Wide Web. Now, clearly Wreck-It Ralph never needed a sequel. I mean, no film genuinely needs a sequel, that's why there's no Snowpiercer 2. But it's worse when you get that sequel and it feels more than a little phoned in, or even worse, derivative. Ralph Breaks the Internet veers between being both of those at different times. And though it's not without its charms and some seriously deep-cut nerd references, it's not quite up to the level of Finding Dory or even Incredibles 2 as regards the whole standard of Disney sequels. Yes, by the way, I am aware that those are from the other studio, and that literally is a gag they've chucked in there, by the way. Picture, if you will, the Emoji Movie remade to the standard of The Return of Jafar, and you'd be more or less in line with where this winds up on the quality spectrum. I mean, hilariously, it even goes so far as to utilize not only one very distinctive member of the Emoji Movie cast, it even half-inches that movie's Twitter gag. You know, the one of the... Never mind. If you saw the movie, I don't know why you would, but if you hate yourself and want to see the Emoji Movie, yeah, anyway, you'd know. Try though this might, there really isn't anything in movies more depressed than the obvious influence of middle-aged studio executives injecting trends into any project and trying to make it seem cool and relevant, and there's a fair bit of that here. I mean, it's not quite up to the level of that Nativity sequel with a whole flash mob storyline. I mean, I hope someone involved in that genuinely lost their home. I really do. It's just a terrible movie. But, you know, it's not far off from that, and that's a problem. There are still some laughs, though. I mean, I'll get to those, don't worry. It's just, I mean, this is not a terrible movie in any way. It's just really, really derivative. And it does itself no favors by dividing the pairing that you really want to see in the first place. John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman make as fun a pairing here as they did last time around, but the movie just becomes infinitely less interesting whenever they're split up. I mean, save for one element that winds up, like, owning the movie outright. Again, patience, please. So, the cast are all here. Riley's given noticeably less to do this time around, despite a frankly whopping jump in the scale of the story. I mean, it's really Sarah Silverman's movie, till it's not. You see, Vanellope gets this sort of barely explored storyline about her own station in life this time around, as a cute reversal between the two characters, and it's largely by way of this sort of great big honking riff on the Twisted Metal video games, and this, well, that and the seemingly unstoppable parade of endless runner driving games that you keep seeing on mobile platforms. That's where Gal Gadot comes into this, by the way, still doing that sort of self-parody of her own hotness thing that she does whenever she's not in a DC movie, you know, which themselves are admittedly parodies of cinematic universes. Meanwhile, Jack McBrayer, love that guy. Jack McBrayer's back, Jane Lynch is back, but they're basically cameos. They're like two very brief appearances and nothing else. Alan Tudyk returns in a sort of new role because that blackmail tape he has of whatever Disney executive is presumably still damaging, and Taraji P. Henson joins the cast as just the most annoying person this side of Ezra Miller. Anyway, the lavish design, the whole colourful realisation of the digital world, that works up a storm, as you'd expect it to, and Props to directors Rich Moore and Phil Johnston for at least attempting to take this in a different direction. It's just a shame it's not really their own direction, or that it has any really tremendously effective depth. I mean, the script, which Johnston sort of co-written with Pamela Ribon, it just feels like it's its own first draft, like it's waiting for someone to come in and give it that rewrite that'll chisel it down in something leaner and more, I don't know, engaging. There are numerous points in this whereby it simply feels like box-ticking brand names, and that's just really not something you expect of a Wreck-It Ralph sequel. That movie was big on product placement, particularly, obviously for the video game world, but never quite to this sort of a cynical extreme. It does feel like a real shame. For what it's worth, Vanellope stuff, though, is the high watermark of Ralph Breaks the Internet, largely because it opens up the Disney universe to actually attempt to explore the agency of the Disney princess archetype. I mean, if you've already seen the trailers, you'll already know that this is done with the literal use of the actual Disney princesses. Incidentally, a staggering number of them actually utilize their original voice artist as well. It's like Mandy Moore turns up, Ming-Na Wen, Jodie Benson, all the Disney princess voices. All present, accounted for, and absolutely hilarious. Thing is, I just kind of found myself wishing that was the movie, rather than the sort of dial-up level hodgepodge you actually get. I mean, don't get it twisted, there were some serious laughs in this, and I did laugh heartily many times. And if you're just in this for the in-jokes and the nerd shots, you can absolutely have a good time. Hell, I'm the easiest lay in the world for seeing a me of Jason Mantzoukas firing off Captain America plot holes to Baby Groot, but there's like 1,000 things in there like that. You just don't really care about the story taking place around it, and that's pretty much the exact opposite, the exact inverse of Wreck-It Ralph. I mean, the movie also can't quite make up its mind whether or not it's the internet that's inherently bad, or the people who use it. I mean, obviously a kid-friendly Disney movie isn't really the place to discuss the alt-right, like weaponizing the greatest advancement in human evolution since Velcro, but it's the kind of subtle depth you'd at least expect at this point. Instead, what you have is writing that attempts to lay out just how cynical and evil the algorithm can be, but then has Henson's character literally put out that wielding it can do good things, before they then tiptoe around the idea that people are cruel, and the internet itself is the cesspool that allows them to be that way. Incidentally, the way that last part's presented to us is bafflingly out of step with the way everything else in this movie is realized. It's almost like Disney has some agenda that sort of properly prevents them from processing how comments made online could gel with fully realized physical beings and their ability to grow as people. I mean, imagine that. There are enough gags to keep it all afloat, though, and whomsoever thought to literally build the internet on top of steel girders branded GeoCities should never have to pay for a drink again as long as they live. But, I mean, it has genuine things to say, it's just not afforded the sort of polish and depth needed to seamlessly get those things across, and ultimately it falls on deaf ears, and it sort of results in a new status quo that you can't deny does in fact advance the would-be mythology and amp up the world building of this, but you do have to question the worth of it. Objectively, I gotta give this a little lackluster 2 stars. I honestly thought this could have been terrific, but hey, at least it's not one of those sequels that just repeats the formula of the first movie out of laziness. I mean, hopefully they got that out of the system with Finding Dory and Incredibles 2. And meanwhile, don't you dare mess up Frozen 2, Disney. I swear to God, if you mess up Frozen 2, you phone it in like you did this, God help you. I will not let it go. Oh no. Another movie you can catch from this week, meanwhile, is the James Dearden-directed comedy Surviving Christmas with the Relatives, which wants to be a comedy akin to something like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, but it forgets to at any point bother being in any way funny. It's got Julian Ovenden and Gemma Whelan, a sort of Londoner couple who've moved their kids out to her family's old country home, and they have to entertain the bulk of their extended brood for 3 days over Christmas. It's one of those that's got a sort of decently known ensemble cast, so like Ronnie Ancona, Jolie Richardson, James Fox, Sally Phillips. They all turn up here, but nobody's managing a single laugh, and the most interesting thing about this is that it just kind of serves to remind us of that really hilarious time that Lois and Clark had to fire its Jimmy Olsen because he had the temerity to resemble Dean Cain. Oh, yeah. Michael Landis is in this, by the way, and no, he's not learned to act. Yeah, so 1 star from me, and I'll be really honest, that's only because we never really got bothered to get around to putting in a 0-star animation for this thing. So, this is just the worst. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, rate, and review.